At least 2 Katyusha rockets were reportedly launched from southern Lebanon into Israel shortly after midnight on Monday, prompting retaliatory Israeli shelling. So far, the situation appears to be contained, but the rocket fire is a reminder of one of several options both Syria and Iran could have at their disposal to counter rising regional pressure. The rocket fire into Israel was claimed Tuesday by a group calling itself the Sheikh Abdullah Azzam Brigades that allegedly operates out of Palestinian refugee camps in Lebanon. Meanwhile, Hezbollah has not claimed responsibility for that attack. The IDF is apparently in agreement with this assessment. Israeli military radio, citing army officials, said that the rocket fire was likely the work of a small Palestinian or Islamist group rather than Hezbollah, while maintaining that it holds the Lebanese government responsible for the attack. Israeli retaliatory fire was also reportedly directed at open fields and not Hezbollah targets. No follow-on rocket attacks have occurred so far. Israel also seems interested in avoiding an escalation, with Israeli military officials stressing that response to the rocket fire would be, quote, limited and selective. This incident cannot be viewed in isolation. First, it's important to keep in mind that while a number of jihadist militants do mill about this part of the region and could act independently, Lebanon has a very murky militant landscape that is heavily utilized by Syrian intelligence. In fact, Stratfor has received a number of indications in recent weeks that Syrian intelligence has been boosting its presence in major Palestinian camps in Lebanon with the intent of creating a security crisis in the region. Even threatening such a crisis, Syria hopes, could distract from the regime's crackdown at home and at the same time compel Syria's adversaries to negotiate a truce with Damascus to avoid a wider regional conflict. There's no guarantee that such a plan would even work, and the recent rocket fire out of Lebanon would constitute a pretty weak response if Syria actually had a hand in it. Still, we are aware that Syria is in the process of ramping up at least some of its militant assets in Lebanon and are thus on the watch for further militant activity emanating from these camps. This puts Hezbollah in quite the dilemma. Hezbollah is not looking for a conflict with Israel, and in fact, its leadership is under a lot of stress at the moment in trying to manage its affairs in Lebanon while its allies in the Syrian regime remain in crisis. At the same time, a covert war appears to be heating up in the region, with several signs of possible sabotage attacks coming to light in recent days. First, there was a November 15th blast at an IRGC ballistic missile complex near Tehran. And then, most recently, there were reports of a November 28th explosion in Isfahan. Iranian media later retracted the report on the Isfahan explosion, but the alleged explosion took place in a city with numerous sites related to both Iran's ballistic missile and nuclear programs, as well as a number of military installations. With U.S. troops withdrawing from Iraq by the end of December, and Iran using its foothold in Iraq to spread its influence in the wider region, a lot of different stakeholders in the region are looking for ways to keep Iran in check. As we're watching for how Iran responds to these incidents, we will be keeping an especially close eye on southern Lebanon. Syria and Iran may have a mutual interest in activating militant proxies to help counter this rise in regional pressure. But so far, the response has been pretty mild, and Hezbollah appears very reluctant to get embroiled in a conflict with Israel at this point in time. Then again, it's also still very early in the game.